Dafid, still Jons. Welcome to النهار العربي. You are the head of School of Communication in the Oakland University of Technologies. Welcome. So, talking AI and education, how you can brief from your perspective the advantages and the disadvantages?
Well, the advantage, in a way, I think there's been a lot of talk about the last year. So it's kind of around a year since ChatGPT was launched, and there's been a lot of talk throughout that year as new versions have been released, and all kinds of versions have been released from OpenAI's initial release, and there's been a lot of talk about it. I think in many ways it's a continuance of some early developments. It's kind of very speeded up, but in a way it's a continuance of some of the disruptions that we had in the digital period anyway, and in many ways it's pushed us to kind of to respond really quite quickly to that digital disruption in any case. And so in some ways some of it's very useful, and in some ways we've already been using them. So for example, Grammarly, which is I think is a software many universities have used for some years to improve English language in our context particularly, that runs on AI. There's all kinds of editing software, things like Premiere, Pro Tools, things like that. They have aspects of AI within them, have had for some time. So what we've seen last year is a kind of a real acceleration of that. And some of that has been very beneficial. I think it's possible to use it as a tool. It's immensely powerful. But of course there are some problems too, perhaps because it's so powerful that people sort of maybe use it in a way that doesn't help them and puts them in a difficult position.
And how to deal with this disruption on social media?
The social media itself, I think the disruption of social media has been pretty big, and I don't think we globally and socially in New Zealand particularly have really got to grips with it properly. I think we're beginning to get to grips with the political, social, emotional, psychological disruption that social media causes. And I think there was a generation of half a generation of children particularly that grew up at the start of social media, which I think social media was very difficult for them. My experience is quite a few of them have logged out of that and have become very critical of social media, and I think we were getting to a position where we were coping quite well with social media, I think, even though there's a lot of evidence to say that there's pretty detrimental to mental health in many ways. So I think AI following on really from the disruption of social media pretty quickly gives us, I think, the possibility to continue some of the lessons we learnt in that disruption of that social media brought, and take those lessons into how we cope with AI.
Simply. And Les, if you want to give an advice to students, how to benefit from the good side and dismiss the bad one?
Okay, that's a really good question. I don't know the full answer to that question, but I think is to think about what you're trying to do. What is your goal? And then what is the best tool for that goal? And it might well be that ChatGPT or another associated AI tool can help you improve what you might do. But I think it's also very possible for a student that by using ChatGPT or something of that nature, it will not help at all. I mean, just for an example, ChatGPT will make things up. It will simulate references. It will simulate events. It will even simulate aspects of its own performance. So it'll tell me, oh yes, I can do this, I can do that, when it can't. So I think you have to be very skeptical about the kind of answers you get from an AI bot or a chat bot of that kind, because it might not be true. And if we're still in the situation where you're writing an essay or you're writing an assessment and it will be marked by a human, well, you're going to fail your assessment. So be very careful when using it. When I use ChatGPT for my work, I always use it as a tool that I then edit. I also very purposefully think, what am I going to do with it before I start using it? and use it to produce things that I then edit very carefully before I ever kind of use. And I think in that sense, it can be very, very useful. And I wouldn't want to scare students away from using AI altogether, but they do need to know how it works and why they want to use it.
As head of a communication school, and after all the debate we're having about AI and creativity, how do you think that AI will shape the future of communication industry?
That's a big question. I think it's important to think about AI as several different things. So there's a temptation to think of AI as one object, and it will act in the same way in all instances. But I think AI is really an umbrella term for a number of different accelerations of a number of different processes and workflows and activities. So I think depending where it's used, it will have a different effect. In creative industries, for example, there might well be some really interesting unintended or unimagined consequences around how work happens. So perhaps those first initial jobs that a student might do might be a little less boring now than they were in previous years because AI will be doing a lot of very sort of difficult and laborious work, and you might as a student find yourself in a much more conceptual and creative role quite quickly in your career. But also I think there's definitely a possibility that some jobs will disappear because of AI's ability to do things so quickly. So I think it really depends on what area you're talking about, how AI will have an effect.
And regulations must needed on ethical level?
Oh, well, I think regulation would be good, I think. How to do that, however, is a big question. And I know at the moment there's several different international territories trying to put together laws that will regulate. I think if one of those laws becomes concrete enough to be usable, and that people that use AI to create things have to show that where the data has come from, and in effect have to make their own AI, then I think that would be a very different outcome and situation if those laws don't get passed. So I think it's a really important period now, and those attempts to try and bring regulation in now are quite crucial to the way that will unfold in the next few years.
Dafid, still Jons, thank you for joining النهار العربي.
It's a pleasure, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.